So, the man who will be US president by the end of the week has love-bombed Britain, confirming what a big fan of Brexit he is too. Donald Trump's intervention comes as more details emerge of the stance the UK will adopt in negotiations with the EU. Tomorrow, Theresa May makes her big speech on leaving the EU, where she is expected to push for a so-called hard Brexit, prioritising immigration controls and taking us out of the customs union and the single market. Meanwhile, Chancellor Philip Hammond, in an interview with German newspaper Welt am Sonntag, warned that if the EU limits UK market access after Brexit, Britain could look at an alternative economic model, seen as a warning to the EU that UK could further reduce corporation tax. In an interview in The Times with former Conservative Cabinet Minister Michael Gove, Donald Trump, who will become president on Friday, said that a trade deal with the UK would come very quickly and be done properly. He said it would be good for both sides. Mr. Trump said he would be meeting Theresa May right after I get into the White House. The president-elect said he had great respect for Angela Merkel, but said that she made one very catastrophic mistake by opening Germany's doors to what he called all of these illegals from wherever they come from. The European Union, Mr. Trump said, is a vehicle for Germany, which is why Britain was right to get out. He predicted other countries would soon follow Britain's lead.
I thought the UK was so smart in getting out. And you were there and you guys wrote it, put it on the front page.
Yes.
Trump said that Brexit is going to happen.
Yes.
Right? And it happened.
Yes.
And that was what it was going to lose easily. You know, everybody thought I was crazy. Obama said they'll go to the back of the line, meaning if it does happen. And then he had to retract. That was a bad statement.
And now we're at the front of the queue.
I think you're doing great.
Dominic Raab, are Donald Trump's comments on getting a quick trade deal between the UK and the US, in your mind, a vindication of the Brexit referendum?
Well, I certainly think they're one illustration of where the EU had tried and failed to get a free trade deal. There are others, from Latin America to China and India, and actually it shows that Britain outside of the EU is well placed to do those deals. Huge benefits for jobs, cutting prices in this country, and I think it confirms as well, in advance of Theresa May's speech, what is already really written into the political and the business markets, that there are advantages coming outside the customs union. I think it's pretty clear we will. Right.
I mean, can you actually trust, though, Donald Trump to deliver a trade deal between the UK and the US?
Well, the truth is, as with all trade deals in the US, it'll have to go through Congress. But what you've got is the new president taking this opportunity, something that's regarded as rather protectionist, of saying, actually, there's a win-win, and his language was very interesting with Britain, and he's going to put his shoulder behind it. That must be better than under Obama, for all that I admire him, who said that we're at the back of the queue.
I mean, the rhetoric's better, isn't it?
Well, the rhetoric's nonsense, and watching that photo of Michael Gove with his thumbs up, I was struck by the three words "la la land." No trade deal is quick. No trade deal is seen as completely fair on both sides, and a trade deal can only take place after 2019, which is the earliest possible date we can leave the EU. Michael Gove says he wants a transitional vote with the European Union, so I don't think it will actually be with President Trump. And let's not forget, with Trump, he won this election saying that he was against open trade, against the trade deal with the Pacific, the TPP, against TTIP. This is a protectionist president. So any idea that he's going to open up to our market, and, you know, he's the big player in this, we stand to lose our environmental protections, our food standards, our food assurances, and this will be a Trojan horse for Trump.
He's got a track record of contradicting himself. That is true on many, many issues, and we can go through those later on in the programme. So it's difficult to know how much weight he will actually put behind a trade deal. But what is true, where Mary Creagh is right, is that it can't happen until the UK has left the EU. So it can't be that quick. And the EU Commission has just reiterated, apparently, exactly that timetable, that no free trade deal can be confirmed and signed and sealed until the UK has left the EU.
Well, look, I can understand why all those who are on the Remain side feel rather disappointed that Obama's threat isn't coming true. But it must be self-evidently a good thing that America, with that massive market, is saying to Britain, hey, we're up for this.
Yes, but you accept that it couldn't be before 2019?
Well, no, I don't think we could sign it before then, no.
But you think the work could be done on it?
You know, people have been talking about 10, 15, 20 years to do these deals. What's clear is it's a priority for him. He'll provide the political leadership, and I'm not quite sure why some on the other side of this feel so disappointed by whatever you think of Trump, something that must be good news for British firms, jobs and also consumer prices in the shops.
How can you be so confident that it will necessarily be good news for British jobs and businesses? It may well be, and certainly they will want to hear more about the sort of deal that can be done. But if you look at TTIP, for example, which predates him to some extent, that was, and there was a lot of concern about opening up our health service. It may have been wrong. People believe, though, that there could have been public services opened up to American privately owned companies. Could that happen with a trade deal here?
Well, first of all, I do think it was rather flawed, and even though I've been critical of the EU, I think that the way that it was characterised was wrong. But nonetheless, what was particularly subject to criticism was the dispute settlement mechanism. Now, obviously, again, the additional advantage of being outside the EU is we have our own dispute settlement provision, probably arbitration-based, which would kill any of this ridiculous scaremongering about the NHS.
Right, let's look, though, generally at the UK economy, because even Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, who was pretty sceptical about what would happen to the economy post-Brexit, is now saying that actually it's growing faster than he predicted. And now we have Donald Trump, rightly or wrongly, saying that he can get a quick trade deal in his mind. Brexit does seem to be working at the moment.
Well, Brexit hasn't happened yet, has it? And I think that's the
referendum.
The referendum. Mark Carney took very strong action in the weeks following the referendum in order to shore up the British economy. What we saw in the autumn statement from Philip Hammond was a £59 billion black hole. We'll see on March the 8th how big that hole has grown. But
what economic evidence is there to say that immediately in the aftermath of that referendum the economy has tanked?
Well, the £59 billion reduction in our tax intake is the evidence that the economy has not done as well as it could have done, and that downgrading of the economy, the fact that the pound is now trading at one. Hang on,
don't be silly. We're the fastest growing economy in the G7, and that was the big shock that actually, in the aftermath of June the 23rd, growth went up, not down. That's just a fact.
Mark Carney took action to do massive quantitative easing in order to stave off a shock to the UK economy.
And are you saying it's just that action that has resulted?
Yes, I think the action that the action that the Bank of England governor took staved off or has postponed that shock. But what we're seeing today,
so you're still expecting there to be a shock to the economy?
I think there will be a big shock once Article 50 is delivered, and the pound is now trading at $1.20.
Right. Well, let's come on to the pound.
Business.
That is a fact, as you know. Yeah. The markets have reacted. They've reacted to some extent to what Theresa May is going to say and what Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, did say about taking action if he can't get the sort of deal he wants with the EU. Are you worried about that? Because although people might have said the pound was overvalued, if it continues to slide and if it stays at a very low level for a sustained period of time, that will hurt the economy.
Well, look, 15 to 20% devaluation, I think, is pretty healthy. And Mervyn King, who kept his powder dry during the referendum campaign, said in relation to devaluation, actually, Britain's economy, the whole model, is better placed to shift from a consumer spending model of growth to
that's not construction industry.
I'll come to you in just a sec. Just finish.
He said better placed post the referendum to move to a manufacturing export-driven model of growth. Now, he may be wrong or he's right, but actually devaluation of sterling within certain parameters is a good thing.
Right. I mean, you accept that for exports it is better. I mean, Donald Trump made that point too.
No, because our exports are made using imported, dollar-traded, euro-traded imports. Most of the things that we make in this country are made with components that come from outside the country. So if you talk to manufacturers in Wakefield, they're concerned that their prices are going up, and actually they aren't able to put their export prices up as much as they would have hoped. And we're also seeing the construction industry entering recession. So the housing crisis
is going up, inflation.
Look, we had more good news today. The Global Talent Competitiveness Rankings across the world have Britain post-Brexit moving up from 7th to 3rd. We need to be an outward, open-looking, competitive, hungry, thirsty country that is driving growth, driving jobs and looking out to the world. The EU is important. But the point about Brexit, the biggest point that Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, the people like me made, is actually the real opportunities for the future, both for businesses but also for consumers, will be the growth markets from Latin America to Asia.
Do you sell more to India and to Belgium than we do to the whole of the BRIC countries put together? Right. So the idea that somehow we're going to leave this market, where we sell more to Ireland and to Belgium,
that's ridiculous.
We are leaving it, and we could face tariff.
Do you not think the implication is leaving the single market and the customs union?
There's two different things. That's hard Brexit.
We are almost
with tariff and non-tariff barriers.
We're almost certainly going to leave being formal member of the customs union. The reason I know that is because all the Remain campaigners said it during the referendum. But the opportunities to
we weren't advocating it.
To retain strong trade is even acknowledged by Michel Barnier on the European side. But it's not being acknowledged by those who actually feel a bit disappointed that those pessimistic outcomes, like Mary, haven't come to fruition. It's
all right,
crazy.
but Mary still thinks they're going to come down the line, and obviously we'll get her back on to scrutinise whether these things do actually unfold. Do you agree with Donald Trump's view that more countries will leave the EU?
I certainly hope not. And one of the worrying things
do you think they might?
No, I don't think they will, because I think there is a mood I was in Brussels in November, and a determination from other European leaders that the EU will not fall apart as a result of our vote. And I think some of the other statements that have been less scrutinised by Trump in the interview, the stuff around dropping sanctions on Russia, and talking about NATO being obsolete, these are things that will materially affect Britain's security and Europe's security in the months and years to come.
And on that, what do you think Theresa May will say in her speech tomorrow? What would you like to hear her say in terms of details about the government's negotiating position?
Well, look, I think she's been very clear since October the things we're not going to do, which is being faithful to the referendum verdict. We're not going to be subject to the free movement rules. We're going to get control of immigration. We're not going to be subject to the ECJ jurisdiction. We want to be a global leader in free trade. I think what we do now need to do, and I say this as a Brexiter, is turn the page and start talking with both self-confidence, given the economy has held up and proved far more resilient than people expect, but also with a certain generosity of spirit, looking for the win-win. We're leaving the EU. I think it's a flawed political club, but we're not leaving Europe. We still want to have strong trade, strong security cooperation. And I think, particularly given Michel Barnier's most recent comments, we're going into that, and I think Theresa May will spell out, and certainly should, the positive, optimistic case for Britain's post-Brexit relationship with Europe.
And the unity between the two sides? Do you think that is something that she should...
I agree with Mary on... I don't agree with Donald Trump's comments about Russia, but actually that's a good illustration of something where the EU is pretty much irrelevant, and outside of the EU, we can still demonstrate we're going to be a strong ally to our NATO friends.
Just finally, before we move on, the Chancellor said and implied that if he couldn't get a deal with the EU in terms of a trade deal, that Britain would take other action. Did you see that as a warning or a threat? Well,
what I saw was Philip Hammond warning that the UK's economic model may need to change fairly dramatically outside the European single market. And I don't want to see us moving to a low welfare, low regulation type of offshoot of the United States of America. And I think that's the wrong future for our country. And I think that is not what people voted for during the referendum.
We'll leave it there. Now